Welcome guys. In this lecture, let's see top JavaScript interview questions with explanations. This is your instructor Rahul Shetty. So let's step by step see what kind of questions you could face in interviews when you are sitting for JavaScript related tech stack. Question number 1. Can JavaScript object hold a function as a property? Explain. So let's see, can this object really hold a function as one of the property? There are a lot of things to dissect here. First, let's try to create one simple JavaScript object. So I will just start with an object like this, const person equals to, and we will write one property here. This is how you declare property John, and let's say their age is 30. Now, these are the two properties of JavaScript object. An object can be created with properties and values. So combining all these properties will sit in one object, and we call this person is a JavaScript object, right? Now, our question is, can this object, can this person hold a function as a property? So right now here our function, so right now our property name is a string, age is a number, and can this property hold a function? Great, right? This is a property. Now value, you can actually create a function like this function, and then you can print whatever you want inside that. Yes, it can hold not just strings or integers, it can also hold a function. Okay, now interesting thing here is, in this function I want to call this property value. Okay, so you can refer to your own properties with this keyword. So this dot name, the John will be printed here. Now how to call this function? You see, person dot greet. So person is an object. Using that object, not just this, you can call person dot name, it will print you John. Person dot age, it will print 30. Similarly, in the same way, when you call person dot greet, then it will call this function and this will be executed basically. Okay, and the output of this will be like, hello, I am John. That's what you will see in your output. But one thing you need to remember here, that greet, when you call a person dot name, now, right, when you call this name, it is just a property where it holds a string and you need not give brackets like this. But whereas when you are calling a property which holds a function, then you should give a brackets to tell that that property is a function. So to see our answer, can a JavaScript object hold a function? Yes, it can hold a function, and in the function you can also refer to your own property values with this keyword, and this is how you call the function using the JavaScript object. Okay. What are anonymous functions in JavaScript? Define their syntax and implementation. Okay, so before we go what is anonymous function, let's first see the basic function implementation. So this is how you can create a function, right? Function, let's say hello, and I'll write like this, some print statement. So by looking at this, this is the function, the way how we define in JavaScript. You write a function keyword and you give the name of that function. Now if you want to call that function, then you will just write that function name here, say hello, and that's it. So this will print you in the output, and when you call this function, it will say hello, I am the world, right? That it will print in the output. Or if you want to return the statement, then you can put return keyword here. So return, I'll remove this console.log, and it just returns hello, I am the world. So whatever you return, you can store it in one variable. Now I would say, let's consider this as hello message. Perfect. And then now you can print out this console.log hello message, and that gets printed in the output. You see that this is what it will print. So to write a function keyword, function name, and this returns. This is cool. Now what is anonymous function? Anonymous functions are those which does not have name. So that means there will be no function name at all. Now here, this is not an anonymous function because it has name, right? So now to give you a simple example, this is an anonymous function. So what is this function name? There is no name in it, right? We created a function keyword and we have defined it. These functions which does not have name are called anonymous functions. Okay, so now let me write this again. Function, I'll create a function keyword here. Now you might be wondered, okay, this looks good. Now this is expecting some name argument, right? So that name argument I will send from here. Now how to call this function? So previously we have a function with a name. Now if you want to execute this function, we called this with that function name and this got written. Very nice. But if the function does not have name at all, how would you return it? So in that case, you need not again explicitly write a step to call that function. You can just collect the output of that function. So in this case, instead of printing, I will again return. This is what I am returning. I'll collect that into just a variable called, let's say, greet. That's it. So now whatever you want to print, if you print console.log of greet, then you will see your output. Okay. So this is how you do if it is anonymous function, because it does not have name at all. It's just a function and the actual code. So the return, whatever this returns an output, we collect that into variable directly here itself for anonymous functions. Now you see that for a JavaScript object previously, this is anonymous. So we are collecting that into a property, right? This function has name. So you can either collect or, you can just call it like this, right? This is so simple because it has a name. You can call it wherever required. But if it does not have a name, you should collect it there itself. Okay. So that's what anonymous functions in JavaScript and their syntax. Okay. So I hope now you understood what is a general functions, anonymous functions, and how functions are being called as a property in the JavaScript object, right? So differences between var, const and let keywords. Explain with an example. So this is interesting, especially with var keyword. Now, if you look at this example, if you are aware of any other programming language like Java or Python, so basically this is a function, right? And here var x equals to 1 is defined. So var is a type. So it is a function scoped as well as globally scoped. So that means if it is in Java, usually what happens is when you declare something inside this block. Now if condition here is one block, right? Whatever you declare here, x equals to 2, technically this will not have access outside of this block. Okay. So this x will point to x equals to 1, what you defined in the line number 4. So whatever happened in this block stays within this block. Okay. And we call x within this block is a local variable to this block itself. And once you come out and it does not have life, if you try to print x, it will point to the one which is in this main scope, which is a global scope, right? But whereas with var keyword, things act differently in JavaScript. So this is a globally scoped. So the moment when you declare x as a global scoped, now inside this block, when you again have x equals to 2, it won't create new variable. Because x is one global, this will have access everywhere, right? So the x equals to 2 will replace the existing one. Now here 1 is stored, right? It will go and make this update to 2. Though you are writing inside one block, it will not create a dedicated variable within this block. It will update the global variable. Okay. So when you print console.log, it prints 2. Even after you come out of this block, when you print console.log here, what will this print? Will this print 1 or 2? It prints 2. As I said, this is globally scoped, and wherever you change x variable, it will change the first defined variable. It will update here itself. This variable will get updated and that will travel. So no matter in which block you update the value, that will be the actual output. Okay, so you won't have a separate local variables and global variables if you use a var keyword. One variable will travel entire function. Okay, so if you want, in typical Java style where when you declare some variable here, that stays only within this condition, but when you come out, that does not have life. If that is your requirement, then you have to use a let keyword. So let is a block scoped here, where var is a function. So it is available everywhere and it's a globally scoped, but let is a block scoped. Now that means, same example, let equals to 1, right? And when you print console.log, it will be 1 only. What happens inside this block? It does not care. It is not having access. If you declare a new variable inside it, that variable scope will be in that block only if you declare with a let keyword. But if you make it var keyword, then it applies to everywhere. All the x variables will be updated. Just because let is a block scoped, now if you have some x equals to 2 declaration, and console.log will print 2 as long as you are inside this block. Once you come out of that block, this variable will not have any life, because this keyword what you assigned for this variable is the block scoped and it lies within that block only. That's the difference between let and var. Now even here, right now, if you don't declare let anything in the prefix, by default it takes as a var. Now y equals to 3. Okay, I did not tell whether it is a let or whether it is a var. If you don't tell anything, by default it's a var. Okay, if it is var, what happens? If it is in block or outside block, doesn't matter. It is applicable everywhere because it is globally scoped. Now even after coming outside of this block, if I write console.log, then this will have access. It will print 3 as an output. Okay, though it is inside. Now let's see. I will call that function here. Okay, I'll come to this very soon. So basically I created one function var example2 and I am calling this function, that's all. And remaining all this is commented. So I'm running this test. You can run any JavaScript file by giving node prefix, node and the file name. That's it. It will run, right? Here you see 2, 3, 1 are the outputs. Okay, so let's try to see what's happening here. 2. Let x equals to 2, within this block it is happily printed 2, right? And now once it comes out of this block, y is 3. Okay, so why is this actually declared inside this block? Even if you declared inside, it is having outside. That means that y is given var access. Even if you don't write anything in JavaScript, by default it takes var access. The moment you put let keyword here instead of any default, okay, if you don't declare anything, it's a default var. Now let y equals to 3. Now what happens? The moment you put let, the scope is within this block only, right? Now when you are trying to print something outside, this does not have any clue what is y, as it is let there. Now let me rerun this. I think it should give me error. Here you go. There is an error saying y is not defined. It's just defined. We got output 3. Okay, the trick here is you change it to let and it became block scoped. Now put it default like this or put var, and again the visibility will show because var is a global scoped, right? And now you run, things will work. This is one of the famous interview question. People try to answer this as just a theory saying var is a function scoped, let is a block scoped. But again, when they really want to test your practical skills, they will give you or ask you write a function like this and show me how things are working. Then where, it will become tricky. That's how people differentiate if you are a theoretical person or a person who applied things practically. Now, coming to const keyword, it is exactly like let, no difference. The only difference here is it cannot be updated or redeclared. Okay. So all the let features apply here, that the scope is block scoped only, right? You cannot write outside, but you cannot, update it. Now here let x equals to 1, right? Now before printing outside of this block, you can make x equals to 4. this value will get updated, and console.log, it will print 4. Okay. But with const problem is, const means constant. So you cannot update it or redeclare it again once you assign value. So here x equals to 4 you can do, and it will print. It will change to 4. But in const keyword, once you assign value, that's all. There is no change. Now see here, x equals to 1. This is inside the if block. Forget about it for a moment. Now again I am updating x equals to 3. This does not work. It will fail, saying you cannot reassign value to x once you declare it as a constant. Let's see. I'll comment out the previous function, and I'm using this function here. The error. It says assignment to constant variable on line number 42 is not allowed. But overall, the differences is where is a function or globally scoped. No matter you are inside block or outside block, the value keeps on updating. And you have that restrictions with let. So that's why, in best practices, people always use let keyword. So that way there is no conflict of variables used inside and outside the block. But do remember, the trick is, if you don't define anything as a type here, it still works. But by default, it takes it as a var keyword. Okay. This is how you can explain if they want you to show programmatically, right? So where are push, pop, slice, shift and unshift methods used when accessing array elements? So most of the people are good in accessing array elements in JavaScript with index or for each loop. That's fine. But there are few specific methods on these JavaScript arrays like slice, shift, all this. But are you sure on how exactly these are used and in what scenarios you can use it to write a code in optimized way in accessing this array? Let's see. So just as a brush up, this is an array. This is how you declare with a square bracket and you write stuff inside that. Right now there are total 4 elements present in an array. Most of you know that this can be accessed with the help of index. Fruits of 0. Apple will be the output. 2. 0, 1, 2, 3. This is how you count indexes. And if you want to access any element, fruits of 2, cherry will be accessed. So this is how you access elements based on the index number. Great. Next, if you want to add a new element to array, so you can directly do that by using push method. Okay, so this will help you to add an element to end of the array. So here, by just having this array dot push of elderberry, and then when you try to print the fruits array, now you will see that a new element added at the end. So similarly, if you want to remove the last element from the array, in this case it's elderberry again. So there is a method called pop. On the array itself, if you just say dot pop, it simply pops up the last added element, which is elderberry again, and your output will be back to original one, right? So these are how you can use push and pop methods in JavaScript. Next, this is interesting. Unshift. Okay, so this will add an element to the beginning of the array. So when you put unshift fig, when you print output again, you see fig is added in the beginning. So see the difference. If you want to add element at the end, push. But if you want to add something in the beginning, unshift. How many of you know this? So this is how you might get a question. So people try to, solve this problem by unnecessarily writing for each loop, getting the size of the array, and then doing i+1 to add it at the end or in the beginning, They are ending up writing 3 to 4 lines of code. But if you are a smart JavaScript engineer who is very good in the programming, you should know stuff like this. Using unshift, you can add in the beginning. Now, let's say you want to remove it. If you want to remove at the end, it's a pop. If you want to remove in the beginning of the array, then you can use shift method. Array.shift will again help you to shift one step ahead, and it pops up the fig from the beginning of the array. Okay, so this is difference between push, pop, shift and unshift. Now, if you want to know the index, so previously by calling the index, we are able to print the value present in the array. Okay. Now I will give the value. Now tell me in which index it is. So there is a method called index of. Now in this array, give me the index of cherry. So that means 0, 1, 2. Cherry is present in the second index. So output will be the 2. So index of method is used to tell the number of the index. But if you want to get actual value, then use array of index and the value will be printed. Vice versa. This is how it works. And this method will come very handy when you want to solve some logic. Do remember that. Now, if you want to remove element with index, so you saw how to remove in the beginning with shift method, how to remove and with a pop. But in the middle, if you want to remove, splice. This is the method which will help you to remove. Now, I want to remove the element present, probably at first index. So if you simply give splice of index and then let's say 1, banana will get removed. So apple is at 0, banana is at 1. So this gets removed. So let's say from this index, if you want to remove the next one, now you can put like this index comma 1. So that means from this onset place, which is banana, now let's say index 1. So that means from this index, it will move one step ahead and deletes the cherry. So like that, not only exact index, from that index value, let's say if you want to shift one position forward and make a delete, that also you can do by giving like this. So this goes from index 1, one more step ahead, whatever you give in second argument. Now if you give 2 here, so it comes to index 1 and move 2 steps ahead and it deletes date. So like this, you can remove any element with exactly giving the index, or from index you can travel also by giving how many steps you want to proceed from that exact index and delete. So you can delete anywhere now, right? In the array, you know how to delete in the beginning, at the end, also in middle, anywhere by providing this splice method. So how many of you know there is a method called splice in JavaScript which does that? Right? Now this is the answer. And simple iteration. If you want to iterate over an array, you can do it using for each block. An array dot for each, and when it iterates, in the first iteration, index will be 0. In the second iteration, index will be 1. And third iteration, the index will increment. Now fruit. So in 0th, what is there? Apple is there, right? Apple will get printed. And the second time it iterates, banana is there. In the fruit, banana will get stored and banana will get printed. So like this, you can iterate. If you want to print all the values present in an array, very simple, use for each, and then that's it. Fruit will iterate and print the index value, and this is index number. So this is how you can iterate over array. Okay. So these methods are enough, guys, especially to answer questions related to arrays. So don't worry, in the upcoming topic, we will do one exercise also combining all these, so that way you will see a practical problem on solving using these methods. But before that, you should be aware of all these methods like shift, splice, and pop, push. Hope this helps. So is JavaScript asynchronous? Of course, it is asynchronous. That's how we answer, right? In interview. Prove with an example. Here where it goes tricky. So let's try to understand with an example what exactly asynchronous means. So we all know theoretically JavaScript is asynchronous, but what exactly asynchronous means? Now, I have a 6 steps here where they are printing. I am the first, I am the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Great. So if I just run this code, what happens? It will all run in the sequence. See, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. So synchronously they are executing in the sequence. Then where JavaScript is asynchronous? Okay, let me show you. Now for this 5th program, let's do one thing. You know what? In JavaScript, there is a function called set timeout. How many of you know this? Okay, so basically this set timeout function take 2 arguments. First argument is the set of code or any function or execution thing, and second argument, it take time 2000 milliseconds. That means 2 seconds. So that means whatever you write in the first argument, that will execute only after 2 seconds. So first of all, it reads the second argument. It will see what is the wait time. So whatever wait time you give, it waits until the time before it executes the code present in the first argument. Okay, so in the first argument, I have to write a sample code saying, hey, I am the 6th program. Okay, so for that, I'll write one function. You can write function also as an argument. Anonymous function, pretty straightforward. Okay, inside this, I'll write console.log, same format. I would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 done, right? I'll remove 5th one from here and I'll write inside this. Okay, I'm just saying I am the 5th program. And now if I run, what happens? Technically, if it is synchronous like Java, it has to go in a sequence. Now what happens is it reaches here and then it says wait 2 seconds, because that's what this function set timeout means. It will wait whatever time you give here before it executes what present in the first argument. But what JavaScript does is it will wait, but that doesn't mean it waits here. It will continue its execution. Once the waiting is complete, it will come back and execute this. But that does not mean that it will block here before proceeding it next. That's what asynchronous means. In asynchronous, there is no hard wait on any step by default. If it is 2 seconds wait, that's okay. The remaining program will get executed and then it will come back after 2 seconds is done to print this. But it won't wait here or it won't block here before proceeding next. It will continue. Now let's see. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Previously everything is good. Now what I have added for 5th program, I added a function where it will wait 2 seconds before printing this step. Okay, let's see. Here we go. You see, it's waiting 2 seconds and then it printed 5th. But before 5th, it printed 6th. So that means it did not wait. I mean, it came back later when it is ready. Okay, but it continued its execution. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 and then came 5. That's what asynchronous means. Okay, it won't synchronously wait on before each step is completed. It just continues and then come back when something is ready again for execution. This is a problem, right? Especially, in test automation or any API building, right? You need to fetch data. Now, if you want to fetch data from API, it will take 2-3 seconds. If you don't wait until then and if you proceed without data, how will you execute next steps? So that's where you should have some mechanisms to handle this asynchronous in JavaScript. Okay, so how you handle? There are next interview questions coming up after this question. But you understood, right? When I say JavaScript is asynchronous, why? Prove them with this example and I'm sure they will be satisfied with it. What are callback functions in JavaScript? A callback functions are functions that are passed as an argument to another existing function. Okay, so this process is used most oftenly for asynchronous operations. This is theoretical definition and everybody can answer it. But what is the practicality behind it? Let's try to understand now. Okay, so by looking at the definition, it is clear that these callback functions are passed as an argument to another function. I have two functions here. Fetch data, okay, which fetches the data, let's say from server. I'll just write it in comments. Fetch data from server. This is what this function does, right? And there is another function called process data. Whatever data is fetched and whatever it returns, I'll process that data. Somehow I'll make some modifications, all that. That's what process data function does. Theoretically, what you do, you just call fetch data, so data will be written, and then you send that data to process data to process the data. Let's see. This is how you usually start, assuming that it returns data. Okay, and then first you call this fetch data like this, and it have a data here, and then you will call process data of data, what that fetch has been written. So that way the data will be fetched and processed here. But problem is JavaScript is asynchronous. So that means if you ask to execute in this order, firstly fetch data will start. Fetch data might take few seconds to fetch data from server. Now you make a API call, right? You might say 2-3 seconds to get response. JavaScript does not wait. It will just continue in the further steps without waiting until the data is got from the server. So immediately it executes process data. But this data is not ready yet. The data is, we are fetching from the server and it takes 3 seconds, and JavaScript is asynchronous. It won't wait. It will immediately come to the next step. Data is not available here. What it will process? So everything will go for a toss. Okay. So how to handle this scenario when you know that one of the function may take time to get the data, and that data probably required down the line somewhere, then somewhere, logically you have to program in such a way that you have to wait until the data is being fetched. So you can, then only these should execute. So there are different ways to handle this. One is a callback mechanism, and now in the recently promises also there. Let's see both the concepts, so that way you can answer any interview question surrounding callback functions and promises. Now, what we can do is, so how to fetch the data from server. Now let me take one very special function called set timeout. It basically take 2 arguments. So first argument and the second argument. Second argument is called timeout. So when you give this, that means it will wait 2 seconds before executing the first argument. Okay, so that's how we are holding the first argument to wait. In the first argument, let's say you want to fetch the data from server. Okay, so let me write one function. In the argument, you can write function also like this, anonymous function, right? And inside, you can write whatever function you want to have, you can have inside it. But you can write it very better. If it is anonymous function, you can do like this also. You can put 2 brackets like this and put fat operator. Okay, and it's also same. So in this anonymous function, you have to write something. So I have a data already here. Now it is clear, right? This simple function, one set timeout function, in this we are waiting 2 seconds and fetching the data. Okay, now I know that after fetching the data only I have to execute this process data step, right? Then only I am able to process the data after data is fetched here. So what we can do in that case is, you can pass this function as an argument to fetch data function. So when you pass function itself to another function, instead of directly calling this process data name here, you can also say callback. The moment you say callback, this fetch data know that, okay, someone want to execute their function after I am done with my work. That is what signal when you send as a callback. Okay. Now, so now I'll call like this. I'll just call this fetch data. I'm calling this function, but inside I'll send process data here. This is how I execute. So these are 2 functions, and to run this, I'll call this fetch data, and inside I'll send process data. But here I'll put generic callback. At runtime, this process data will set in this callback. The moment this process data function sent as an argument and attaches to this callback, then this function know that, okay, let me execute my stuff first, and then I will execute whoever sending me callback here. So after my steps are executed, the data is fetched here, right? Then I will say simply callback data. So I got a data here, right? Like this. So when I say callback of data, that's nothing but process data of data. You are calling this function, that's it, with this data values. Okay. So you might be wondered, then why should I do all this stuff? Why can't I call directly like this? Simple, problem is solved. Why this all callback headache, all that, right? Because ultimately what are you doing? You are waiting until something is retrieved and you are calling this function, right? You can do like this only, no? Call the function name inside this. Why to put callback name and again use callback of data like this? See, we are making this generic. Now let's say tomorrow there is another function, process data or modify data. Okay. Now even this function also have to wait until fetch data is being done. Now what will you do? Now if you hard code with this process data, you cannot use this function for modify. Okay, so again you have to create another function. In that function you have to send modify data in this step. So somewhere generic thing is missing. But if you put callback of like this looks generic. So that means this is saying no matter what function you send me, I will make sure that execute after I am done. Now what I can do, just like fetch data of process data, let me call that function again, but this time I will send callback of modify data. So like this, I made it generic. Now I can call multiple functions which I think that I am dependent on this fetch data without duplicating. So every time the function will fall in the callback, and after all the execution, whatever fetch is complete, you can call callback. When you call this will eventually execute the one what you are sending. So in the line number 23, process data will get execute. Will that replaced here in the callback of data. So that means this function will get execute. Now when you run 24th step, modify data will be sent here, modify data of data, and this step will get execute. So I can say modify processing and modifying data here. So like this, to make it generic. Now read the definition again. Callback function is a function that is passed as an argument to another function. That clear, right? Another function, and it is executed after some operation has been completed. That means after fetching data operation is completed, this callback function will get executed. So send me as an argument. That is what the definition is saying. So I told you two cases. What if you simply execute in a sequence without all this stuff? Then JavaScript is asynchronous before fetching the data from server. Let's say if it takes 2 seconds, then things will mess. That before it get executed, it will proceed to next step even without having data in place. So that's why we are forming some linkage. And when we are forming linkage, I don't want to hard code by giving the function name directly here. So I cannot use it for another function. So that's why I use the concept of callback. So any function can come at runtime as a generic, and then it helps us to solve asynchronously. That's the goal of the callback mechanism. So here no return data is required now because everything is taken care by calling this function. Now let me run this code. Let's see how it will run. Okay, first data fetched. You see there is a slight wait of 2 seconds before you give the answer. So this is how control will start by calling the first function process data. Okay, data fetched and then processing sample data. So whatever you are sending in the data, sample data will be loaded here. Because you are calling process data, that function will be called here. And the data will go here processing sample data. Now again you are sending callback as a modify data. Again data will be fetched, but this time this function will get executed and you are seeing modifying sample data. So that's how callback work, and we use this to make synchronous. When the things are in asynchronous operations, we will use callback so that things will fall in place as expected. Right? Now, what are promises in JavaScript? And now let's see what are the difference between callback functions and promises. Obviously with an example here. So what is the ultimate goal of using callback? The only reason is we want to data being fetched first and then process it. So because JavaScript is asynchronous, we are doing all this callback data stuff, right? That's the only reason why we are ending up doing this, because we want to wait until this is done, but JavaScript is not waiting. So we can do that in another way than callback. And this is the latest way of doing it, which by using promises. Okay, so let me do one thing. I'll create another file so that won't conflict with our existing stuff, right? New file, concept 5. So the same function what I have, I'll place it here. You are familiar with this, that it is using timeout function. It will wait 2 seconds and it will fetch data. So once the data is fetched, we can process the data like this. Okay, I want to tell like this. It will start first executing, right? It won't be done. It is still in the fetching mode, and JavaScript immediately will go and try to execute it, right? That is going to happen every time. So I want to somehow tell my execution that wait until this data is written before you execute this. So something like this. fetch data, right? If you want to call this function to execute, this is how you call, right? Fetch data. So I want to link somewhere that after executing fetch data only execute process data. I want to link my execution like this. So when you say JavaScript is asynchronous, when you start executing in a sequence, first it executes fetch data, right? It is still in process. The data is not written, but it won't wait. It's immediately going here. But here I want to tell, did you get the result from this guy? If you don't get, wait, don't execute me. What I will process when the data itself is not there for me? That is how I have to yell to JavaScript. So that means smartly somehow I have to tell like this. Fetch data, execute something inside this. This is how I have to tell it. That's my ultimate goal. And inside, if you need, I will execute this process data. Okay, so this fetch data will get execute, then you will get data. This is returning data, right? That data take and then process here. So I want to link like this, so that way when JavaScript is hurried up, it can't execute process data now, because the way I handled it is wait until this data is written, then take the data, then only do this. That's how I'm putting a link. Awesome. So this is called promise. But you cannot write directly like this. Here, there is so much concept behind it. I'm telling you the overall idea. This is how we will end up. But here, you have to handle that with a promise. So that means, basically, when you see this step, you are telling that you are resolving the promise and then processing the information. Okay. So first, to make this happen, first we need to create a promise object and wrap within this. Now let me show you. Instead of sending all this, we will send a promise object like this. See, I'm creating object of the promise and I'm wrapping all this code inside this. See what I'm doing here. We know this set timeout, everything is there, right? Now return of promise object. Now what happens is fetch data. Now previously I told wait until it gets data and do this. But how JavaScript will know whether this operation is done or not? So this linkage is fine. And I'm telling wait until this is done and proceed. But who will tell JavaScript this is done? So for that, JavaScript depends on this promise state. Okay. So there are 3 states for this promise: resolve, pending, rejected. So that means if something is fail within this, it will tell that I am rejected. So when this is rejected, it won't go inside. It will go only, this then will activate only when promise is resolved. That means successful operation is being done. Then only this will activate. When promise came as a pending, so that means data is still fetching, right? The server still did not send the data. So that time the state of this promise will be pending. If fetch data is pending, it won't execute this, because then keyword will activate only when promise is in moves to resolved state. If it is rejected, then also it won't move. Okay, so that means this process data will never execute until promise moves from pending state. If it is in pending or rejected state, this will never execute. But that is what we want, right? If this is pending, that means data is not there. What is the point of executing this? If this is rejected, let's say it failed to send the data. Okay. When data is rejected, then what is the concept of going to this function? So this can be executed only when this is successfully executed. That means the promise state moved to resolved. Okay. So now what we can do here is, in the set timeout, you got your data. Assuming you got your data, then there is a resolve property, and then you resolve this data, right? Right like this. Okay. You are sending a signal to this your object that I am resolved. Okay. Once you send a signal of resolve, then promise will move to resolved state. Okay. And the moment it's the resolved state, and then it will proceed and then execute process data. That is how we are making sure the operations go in synchronous way without randomly executing. Okay, this is new way of doing. Now this is not even required, right? Only one step, right? Processing. I'll write here only processing the data. I can get rid of this also. Okay, all the processing data code I'll write inside this function after it is resolved. So same thing previously we have done with a callback of having two functions, and you call that one function with function argument. Now here I'll keep it very simple. You just have one function and it will tell when it is done. Simple. As it is asynchronous, once it will tell that it is done, then only we are proceeding. Okay, this is how it works. Now when you run this code, immediately it calls this function. It will take some time to fetch data. So what is promise state here? Pending. Is pending dot then? No, not allowed. It won't go inside. It will wait. It will keep on searching. The moment it sends I'm resolved, this move to resolve status, then immediately this will be notified. Hey, I'm in resolve state, and then it proceeds to execute. So that's how also you can actually manage and handle than using callback. Okay, so our ultimate goal is to handle asynchronous operation, making sure that process data is done only after data is being fetched from server. There are multiple ways of doing it. You can do either with a callback, or you can do like this with a promise by sending resolve or data. Now let's say it returned null data. Okay, then you can simply send like this also, reject. I mean, you can write one if condition that if data is sending null, then send status like this, I am rejected. Okay, then this will be activated with a reject status, and once it sees reject status, it will never go inside it, and your test will be completed without even going inside it. There's no point, right? Okay, so you can send resolve, reject, all that. As long as the execution is progress, it automatically keeps status to pending. You explicitly need not write. So this is how you can handle promise and callback. Now another cool thing is there here, that awaits. So how many of you know awaits? So same thing, we can handle it very simple manner. If you don't want to write dot then all that, put await and fetch data and collect the data like this. Okay, look at this step now. Same thing it is doing, it is waiting until data is processed, and now you can write console.log processing. Yeah, same step you can write here. So either you can write this way or this way. This is more simple, right? Await. So how exactly this work is, instead of calling that function and seeing whether it is resolved and then function doing all this syntax, if you put await keyword, this internally takes care and it wait until the promise is resolved. Okay, and whatever data it is giving back, now it is giving us data, right? Resolve of data. So that data it will send back and it will push into one variable. And then you can use same step again in the sequence. So line stops at line number 21. It won't move further. When you have await keyword in place, it will make sure it will wait until this method promise comes to resolved state and then collects data, and then only it moves forward to the next step. So await keyword is used to handle asynchronous operation. Or you can do this also. All this comes under promise family only. So that's why when you deal with a Cypress or Playwright, you call a method page.getText. Okay, and in Playwright particularly, for every step you put await keyword, because all the Playwright UI automation methods are returning promise. Okay, you need to wait until that promise is resolved, until you collect the data from the browser, right? If you don't write await keyword, everything will go for a toss. It won't wait until the data is being returned from the browser. It immediately goes to next step. So that's why with prefix with the await keyword, so it will wait until data is nicely returned, and then you can further process it in the down the line. Or you can just say fetch data then and write like this. These are different ways you can handle promise and callbacks in JavaScript, especially to handle these asynchronous operations. I hope you have understood the differences in this. So create inheritance relationship between parent and child classes. So in JavaScript, so how inheritance relationship is formed between parent class, child classes, and how we invoke parent constructor from the child class. See, the interview questions can be formed in multiple ways in this object-oriented principle concepts, like creating inheritance relationship, how we can invoke parent constructor from the child class. okay, and create another file where you call a parent class methods from child class object, and then how to utilize super and this keywords to achieve the solution for all that. Okay, so everything comes as a baggage. You can expect multiple interview questions from this concept of inheritance on how to invoke parent constructors, what is super keyword, this keyword, and how they are exactly used in this relationship, right? Let's try to understand all of them in one single go. Okay, so there are two classes, guys: person class, student class. So basically, person class hold the details of that particular person, like what is his name and what is his age. Now this is the class, right? In this class person, there is a method called get details where the details of the person will be retrieved. Okay, so here constructor is used. So that means whoever using this class, they have to send name and age to invoke this person class object. Okay, so name of the person, age of the person, you need to send details. So it will be stored in its local instance variables, and it will combine and send as a get details method. This is just a class where it exposes a name and age. Similarly, there is a student class. So this class only talks about grade basically. Okay, but whose grade we are talking about? We need a person name, person age, and their grade. But here name and age, for these two things we already have another class called person. So why can't we utilize here? Instead of again creating name and age, what we did is use a keyword called extends. So that means we are inheriting the methods and properties of person class into student class. So that way we can get access to this name, age, details, all that in the student class itself. Again, instead of rewriting it, duplicating, right? So for that you need to have a keyword called extends. So that means inheritance. This is parent, this is child. Using extends keyword, you set that inheritance. Okay, so the moment you set it, now you need a details of that person, right? I mean his name and age. So there is already a method here. So from your child class, you can simply call that method like this: super dot get details. Super refers to your parent class. Okay, automatically when you say super dot get details, it will check in its parent class whether if there is any get details method is there. If it is there, that method will be executed and it retrieves at this point. So this way, instead of rewriting that get details method again, you can inherit it from the parent class using this extends keyword and solve the things. Okay, now there is a main.js file. So I am creating the object of the student class. So basically this is the method I want to call, guys, get student details, because this has everything. It has a parent class details like his name, age are storing in the parent details, right, coming from the parent class, and the child class grade also is there specific to this class, right? Everything I'm able to grab from get student details. Now what I can do, from my class I created object for this student class. So this is how you create object with a new operator, new of student. Okay, and you need to send details, because the student class, if you carefully observe, in the student class constructor is there. This respects 3 arguments. So you are forcible to create a class object with these 3 constructors. Okay, without these 3 constructors you cannot create object. Okay, so if you end up writing like this, it won't work. It will throw an error, because the contract of the student class says that you can call me and create object of me with these 3 attributes present. That's the goal of this constructor. Constructor is basically invoked when you create object. If it is invoked with a partial data, test will fail here. So you are forced to send name, age, agenda to activate this student object. So that's why here name is there, age is there, grade is there. So like this you have initialized student object. Okay, so once you create object, what happens is automatically this constructor method gets executed. The moment anyone creates student object, right, the class students constructor will be activated. So that means this name, age and grade, these 3 details will exactly fall in this place. From here, they will be assigned to its local variables. Okay, because this is a scope of this block. If it falls in this place, there is no use. I want grade to use here, which is coming from test. But the scope of constructor, you see, the braces are here to here. Outside of this, there is no scope. So that's why we are attaching this grade to the local class instance. If you attach to this keyword will have access to entire class. So that's why the grade, what you got from your test, you are attaching to this keyword here. So this dot grade you can call anywhere now, because this has access to global, and this got activated with the grade what is coming from this main.js. This is how you form a connection overall. Now there is one interesting thing here. What is the super of name of age? Okay, so name age, basically these two are used to invoke parent class constructor. So what happens is, as a student, when you are inheriting from your parent class, your first duty is that before executing your own constructor, you have to execute your parent constructor. That is the primary goal, and that should be the first step in your constructor method. Okay, so when you are inheriting somebody, you also have to invoke their constructor, right? So you cannot write again here. It is mandatory that that first line of your constructor code should be invoking the constructor of your parent. That's the object oriented principal rule. Now, how you can invoke that constructor? So to invoke student constructor, what we did is we just created object. When you create object, automatically that class constructor will be invoked. So that's how this got activated. Student.js, this got run. Now inside, you have to invoke parent, right? If you want to invoke any parent constructor, just use keyword called super, and then make sure what are the arguments it is expecting. You have to respect it. So just like how initializing student constructor, you send all the three details what student constructor is expecting. Similarly, when you call your parent constructor, you have to first see what are those arguments, name, age. So you have to send it from your constructor step, super of name comma age. When you say super, parent class constructor, and name age you already got from your actual main.js, right? And the scope of those will be within this block, and within this block only you are calling them. So this dot is not required because you are inside this only, no? Right? Like this name comma age will be gone at runtime, and this dot name, this dot age, these name age what you are saying will be attached to this keyword. Okay, because of attaching here, later here when you call get details method, right, the attached this keyword will be fallen here, name and age, and it will be sent. See how all these are connected. Okay, one controlling step, you are simply calling object of your class what you want. Okay, internally this has to take care of calling its parent constructor, initializing its parent constructor with its values, and then you can happily call your parent methods. All this is happening using super keyword. Okay, now when I say where are exactly super and this keywords are used for creating inheritance, invoking parent constructors, then you can explain like this. Super is used to call parent constructor and parent methods, and if needed parent properties also you can call, but you have to use super dot. And this is valid only in child classes. You cannot use anywhere. Only class which is extending its parent, you can call those with super keyword. How about this? So this is in class instance which have access to entire file. Okay, so when you receive values from your main.js to your constructor, the scope of that values lies within this block only. How you will expose this name, agenda and grade and distribute to your entire file here for all the methods. For that we use this as a middleman, because this has access to entire class as it is a class instance. We are feeding those with by attaching grade. This dot grade is now new variable. Grade is one variable, this dot grade is another variable now. Okay, so our actual value what we got, we are attaching to this keyword, and that's how this is used everywhere. So to tell in simple terms, the constructor values, if you want to access in methods using this keyword, I'll make it possible, right? So this is how all these three are connected, and this is how you can achieve inheritance with extends keyword and making things work with super and this keyword. Okay, so that concludes this question. So what is difference between equality operator of having double equals and triple equals? And this is also a famous interview question, which will really help interviewers to understand how much practical on day-to-day knowledge, hands-on knowledge you have on the JavaScript. As a QA automation engineer, you will be encountered this very frequently because you compare this with your expected and actual output to assert the tests, right? So you should be having very familiarity on how double equals and triple equals work. Now let's see. Console.log, right? If I just say 5 equals to 5, what happens? So double equals, now I'll convert this 5 into string. So when you put 2 equals, it does not care about what kind of type it is. Now here 5 with a quote is a string type and 5 here is a number type. So instead of considering the fact of the type, it will convert one of the type to the other type and compare. Now here string 5 is there, right? Internally it will convert to integer 5, number 5, and it compares. So type check it won't do. It only checks visually the characters are same or not. Okay. So here output will be definitely true. But if you want type comparison as well strictly, and then the same console.log, you can write with 5 triple equals and the output will be false because number cannot be compared to string. So not just the values, it will also compare types if you put triple equals. Okay. So now let me just run this test so you will know that how these are handled. Node concept 8. See, first one is true and next one is false. So having 3 equal operator, make sure your type also should match exactly. So how are you validating assertions? And the next interview question could be like, how do you put assertions in your test? Do you use double equals or triple equals? There is no standard answer for it. All I would say is it depends. Okay. It depends on what my requirement is, what I am really validating there. So based on that, you can make a check, right? If I really want to just grab the text from the browser and compare, right? Then obviously text will come from the browser and I'll also have text. So type also should match. So I put triple equals. Or if I want to grab something from a table, okay. So table sum should be 100. So expected 100, but in the output when I am grabbing, they came as a string, right? So the 100 get text will return me 100. That is a string format. In that case, I'll put double equals or I'll convert that again to integer.parseInt. But again, it depends in which scenario we are talking about. But ideally, I would prefer having triple equals so we have a consistency on the way we are matching the comparison, including the typing. Okay. Next, what is difference between null and undefined in JavaScript? So sometimes we see null in the output, sometimes we see undefined. What exactly these are? See, you will see null only if you explicitly write like this, let a equals to null. Okay. And now when you try to print console.log of a, and now you see the output, what it gives us? Null. Because as of now, you are saying I have not given anything. It's a null value. And later you have a requirement to fulfill this value. So you start with a null. If you don't have anything to initialize, see, some variables demands initialization in the beginning itself. Some may not really need to initialize. So you would initialize with null in the beginning and later you will initialize with the actual value. Okay. If it does not go to the loop of actual value, then it won't get initialized and your output will be still null. Okay. Now, if you want to see what type it is, in JavaScript, you can get type of any variable by simply writing like this, type of a, and you can print that in the output console.log. If you ask like this, type of A, it will tell you what kind of type it is. So I'll run this again. This is an object. So null also is an object. Okay, so the reason why I'm saying is null and undefined are two different things. So this is like a number string. It's a JavaScript object which do not have any property values. Simple. An object which is not yet fed with values, and we have told it as a null. Very good. Now I'll write like this. Let b. I have not yet initialized it. Now what happens when I do this console.log b? So if you initialize with either value or null, it will tell that object is right now empty. It's waiting to feed. But if you don't give anything and if you live like this, you will get output as undefined. See, defining with null is also fine. That is definite, defining something. But if you don't define anything, then it comes as undefined. Now I'm curious to see what is the data type for this undefined. And here you will see that data type is also undefined. So this is the difference. So most of the students will say they are almost same. No, almost same. That word from you itself tells that you don't have clarity on what exactly how they differ. This is how they differ. They initialize. Null is also a JavaScript object which does not have any property values. But undefined is something which you have not defined at all. Okay, so you can talk about these examples and show them how they are differ, and especially the operators, double equal, triple equals. Here there is no typing, and here you have a nice typing check. Okay, hope this helped to talk better in interviews. A classic programming interview question that involves JavaScript objects and array methods. Let's see. So this is the program. Create an array of objects representing students with their names and scores. So basically, first you need to create an array in JavaScript. That array should hold a JavaScript objects. Interesting. And that object should hold names and scores property key values. Great. Let's do that. So after you create that array of objects, and they were willing to get the below result with an optimized solution. So firstly, we have to filter out student JavaScript objects who passed in the exam with score more than 36. And then update past student name to uppercase. Initially, they could be in any case, lower or upper. It's not streamlined, but in our code, we have to first find out the past students who have more than score of 36. And then update their names to uppercase and find out the total score of all the passing students. This is the problem you need to solve. This is a very good example that you can use filter method, map and reduce in core array methods. And then we will also use JavaScript objects. Okay, so this one example will help us to hands on multiple things. Let's start from scratch, very quick. So first create an array. How do you create an array? So let me start like this. Students, const students equals to array. Array in the sense I would keep square brackets like this. Okay. So here where the array representation in JavaScript. Now inside array, what they want? They want array of objects. So that means how the JavaScript objects are defined. Just with curly braces, right? So this is one JavaScript, comma, and this is another JavaScript. Like that you can write multiple JavaScripts, objects, okay? But this JavaScript objects should hold, each object should represent a student basically, okay? So that's how it becomes array of students. Each object is a student. So in that, they need a name and score of each student. So that means inside a name is one key. Probably you write something like Alice is a name of the student. And then they also want score property. So score equals, let's say, 45. So like this, we need to create key value pairs. So I have some set of pairs. Instead of we wasting time, I can directly copy paste. So this is fine, right? You created an array. array of student objects where each student have key value pair of name and scores. So this is first the data, data what you created to execute your program. Now from this data, you need to filter out students who passed in the exam in getting score more than 36. Okay, so let's do some modification. Probably we'll put this as 25. So that's how now 2 students should fail, David and Elise, right? They have less than 36. So how do you filter? Students is an array, right? There is a filter method in JavaScript, right? Now here where you can put a filter. So now what this filter method does, it will iterate through each and every JavaScript object, okay, out of this array. Now when it iterates, in the first iteration, first guy will be retrieved. So that guy will get into the student. They will get stored into this student object. So using this, now you can write a particular function what you want to execute there. Student, and what do you want to do? Student dot score is greater than equals to 35. No, I would say 36. 36 is a pass mark. Okay. Now look at this. What did we just do? So this filter method, we know that it iterates through array, and every iteration first it iterates and picks the object. Okay. In the first iteration, this is picked and the whole object is stored in the student variable. Now student dot score, that means 25 will be retrieved. Is 25 greater than 36? No. So that student data will not be collected. Again, the loop iterates. In the next iteration, this guy will fall into the student object, and student dot score 55 will be retrieved. Is 55 greater than 36? Good. It gets shortlisted. So that means it filters. It filtered Bob guy. And again, Charlie condition also met. Charlie also will filter. And next, David. When David object falls into this, David dot score 35. Now this condition is not true. So that will be not filtered. Again, Eve. So like this, except these two people, these two are filtered out from the game, and these three are collected. So all the collected guys, collected JavaScript objects, we can place in one variable, past students, like this. Okay. So now using one simple filter method, we were able to map the condition and retrieve the filtered array. So now let me print out this in the output, console.log and past students. Okay. So the whole goal here is for interviewer to check if you can use filter method effectively in one single line to get the custom array based on your condition. Okay. So this filter method is all about iterating and checking the condition. If condition is true, then it creates a new array with all that condition matched guys. So node concept -6. Here you go. You see, it exactly filtered Bob, Charlie, Eve, and left Elise and David because they are scoring less. So that's the concept of using a filter method. So using that method, we were able to filter out students with a proper condition. Next, update past students name to uppercase. So this is now the new list, right? Past students is a new array. You can see that it gave me array. In the array, you have JavaScript objects of past students. Now I have to update their name to uppercase. That's what, my second requirement. Okay, so on this past students, because this is the array we need to work on, there is a method called map where you can tweak the existing details. So again, just like filter, it iterates through each and every object in this past students, right? Now again, student, I'll take this, and here what I'll do is student dot name, what it gets. When I say student dot name, in the first iteration, this guy will be retrieved. When I ask student dot name, Bob will be retrieved. So that particular one, I'll map it. So this is the original name, right? I am mapping the original name of that to uppercase. I'll put like this. That's it. So what this map method does is, whatever new value you are writing, now for a student object, wherever you see student name, you are changing that to the student name to uppercase. That's it. So you mapped this B-O-B small capital letter to complete uppercase. And now the map iterates. In the next iteration, Charlie will fall here. For that object, you are taking that student.name and you are converting that to uppercase and you are asking to map. Okay. So that's cool, right? Even third iteration, this will be mapped. Now after this, all the mapped names, what you are looking for, right? So you said Bob will be mapped to this. Charlie also mapped. All these mapped names. Now let's collect carefully into, I would say uppercase names. Now I'll print this uppercase names. So what carefully we have collected now? In every iteration we have, you see that? Now first iteration we converted that into uppercase, and second iteration Charlie, Eve. All these three are converted. So why not Alice and David are not converted? Because here we are asking to map based on the past students array only. On this array only I am applying. If you put students.map, then everything will come. So all that mapped details are now converted and properly got into a new array with uppercase characters. So this is how with one single step you can map and retrieve a new array, okay, using map. Now you understood, right? Filter is filtering out condition, conditionally eliminating few objects based on what condition you write. Map, what it does is it won't eliminate, but it gives you new array by modifying the existing array based on your new condition, new mapping requirement. Okay, so every object. So this is how it started. To keep it very simple, guys, this is the student, right? This got mapped into Bob. This is what we are telling. Pick this and convert this into one single line like this, which is this. Now second one converted into Charlie like this, and third one got mapped to like this. Okay, I hope now it's clear to you. And the final one, which is interesting here, total score of all passing students. Okay, so now all passing student details I have here, past students, right? So to have consolidation, there is another method called reduce. So interestingly, this reduce method take two arguments. One is a callback function. You all know callback function, what is it, right? So if you send another function as an argument to existing function, that is called callback. So basically you need to send some function as a first argument. So in my case, that function is something which gets me the total score of all passing students. So that means that function has to get me the score of 55 plus 65 plus 75. The total score it has to do, right? So now accumulate, second argument is an accumulator. Accumulator in the sense you can create a value which starts with 0, right? And then you can increment this value on how you need in the first function. Just follow me, you will understand. So let me write one function like this. Function. This accumulator can be accessed, right? So this is an anonymous function, a function which does not have any name. All it takes is two arguments. First argument accumulator. Right now this accumulator is 0. Whatever you put in the second argument can come here. And the student. So this will again iterate. This past students will again iterate. So in every iteration, one guy will be retrieved, just like how we retrieved in filter and map. That retrieved guy will get stored in the second argument. So these are the two parameters available for us. With these two parameters, we need to write now a logic which can count the students' scores, right? So I'll write one single step here, student.score. Okay. So in every iteration, you can pull up the student.score. Next, what we can do is, this is 0, right? I would say ec equals to accumulator plus student score. Now what happens? So in the first iteration, accumulator value is 0. 0 plus student.score. In the first iteration, this guy will be retrieved. score is 55. So accumulator value will be 55 in the first iteration, right? And again, this will continue, right? Because we have two more. When you say past student dot, in the second iteration, second guy will be retrieved. So previous iteration accumulator value is 55 with this. Now when you say accumulator plus student dot score, in previous iteration, this value got updated to 55, 55 plus 65. That's how it, now new accumulator value will become 120. I hope, right? So now again third iteration. So this time this guy will be picked, third object. So previous value of accumulator is 120, which will be here 120 plus the new value is 75 is what? 195. Like that it continues until the last iteration is done, and finally you can return it. Okay, so the return value is nothing but the total score of these three arguments. See, we are able to do that using reduce method in one single step. You did not place in a separate variable like this and return it. Here itself you can say return, and that also will work in one single line. So now let's collect whatever it returned, total score, and then let's try to print it. So basically you will be given an example like this to test your ability on how you can write filter conditions, how you map existing array to new values, and how would you use the accumulator to iterate and sum the values, or any specific thing where you want to consolidate, right? This is more of consolidate. So let me run, and here you go. You got answer as 195. And that's our requirement as well. If you check, we have filtered out students, we have updated the names to uppercase, and we also got total score. See how we started. We created an array, and array went JavaScript objects, name, scores, and I just used these three methods to solve the problems. This is very good examples. I really suggest people to remember the concept, and you might not exactly get this way, but people try to ask a question which you will end up using these methods, because they don't want you to solve a larger problem in 1 hour interview. So they will just check how smart you are in using all these methods. So if they ask something related to conditions or update existing values, then obviously you should remember that somehow these methods can be applied to solve the problem. With this, I am wrapping up the top interview questions series. So I hope it really helped you to prepare and get confidence on facing any JavaScript interview questions. We have discussed and touched all the top concepts which are commonly asked in interviews, and from now you can go ahead and sit in any interview on JavaScript with confidence. Okay, wish you good luck.